can enjoy this. Now it's like you're beside a nice warm
Volcano.
volcano. Yeah, you look like you're staring into the heart of a volcano.
Okay, I'm going to try and bring up the room lights. If the room lights will turn on. Please, room lights, behave. Getting closer. Okay, so I want the dusk light. Sorry, everyone.
Hey
I know
everyone!
this is.
While Pamela is messing with her lighting, I'm gonna say hi. Hello to Adam Synergy, Antifusion, Barrett Kleinkar, Colin Jones, Duck Sandwich, Ella Davron, Fleming Thunberg, Giselle Sabarin, Gordon Dewis, Skeeto Bibra, Hugo Burnham, James Aberson, Jessica Feltz, John Yogerst, John Suffield, Quadlibit, how's that? Malcolm Bond, Matt Obadia, Max Sixblade, Nancy Graziano, Navifairy64, Oberon Nightseer, Peter Quinn, Rachel Fry, Selena Tele, Sergio Botero, Steve Heistand, Susie Murph, Thomas Trandaker, and Zapfan. Did you guys see the collaboration that Isaac Arthur and I released yesterday? Sergio put in a bunch of artwork, and it is so great. He came up with the lunar mining, helium-3 mining facility, the sort of advanced super version of it, and then he also did some really amazing imagery for various gas giant mining facilities, spacecraft, and things like that. So it was awesome. It was a total treat to work with Sergio, and also Kevin Gill, who is one of my favorite people in the universe, did a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So we've got this. So Isaac Arthur, if you haven't already seen Isaac Arthur, go to his channel, and we sort of split up this episode over two pieces. We both sort of did our parts, and it was just so much fun. I should probably lose this. All right.
So, just as we were going live, my normal camera decided it was not going to work. So pardon the new,
Is there
not as
any way I
good
can get
setup.
more head space from you?
Okay, I'm going to
Up
risk
here.
everything. I know. So, the problem is I have to tilt my Mac, and my lamp is behind it, trying to prevent that from
Perfect. This is
occurring.
great. Stop. It's good. You got it. Don't do anything else.
Okay, I have to let go of the
Danger
monitor and the
zone.
lamp.
Please, stop. It's going to destroy. Good? You're good. All right. Yeah, your lighting is
Okay.
fine. Your lighting's fine.
Okay. It wasn't a moment ago. A moment ago, it was like,
What is my headphones brand? Do you mean these ones? You know what? I'm not going to speak of them because they have disappointed me. So you don't get to know what headphones I wear because they broke on me and told me it was my fault.
oh,
So, yeah.
mine broke too, but it was my fault. I got them wet.
No, mine was not my fault. Like, it's just there's clearly a sort of place where they have a weak point, and they're like the fancy ones. I bought the fanciest version I possibly could from this unnamed supplier, and yeah. What am I wearing on my head? No, they're garbage. I don't know. I am
I
so hard on headphones that I buy the cheapest headphones I can. I just buy $10 headphones from Amazon. I pile them up like cordwood and just ruin them.
so I admit that I spend an extra $10 and get the $15. I get the $25 skull candy ones because they
Hmm.
have controls and they deal with all the doorknobs. I catch them on fairly well.
Yeah, and
So
that's it, right? It's just a matter of time before you're going to catch them on a doorknob or you're going to slam them in a car door. And yeah, I must go through four pair a year because
oh yeah.
I'm always wearing headphones. I'm always listening to podcasts. I just ruin them. So, yep.
Get them caught in the car seat while
Yeah.
moving the car seat.
Yeah.
If you can destroy them, we've probably found the way.
Have you ever had your headphones pull your phone right out of your pocket and try to throw it in the toilet?
Yes.
Yes,
I have.
or into a pool, or yes. Let us have a conversation about what it is that we're going to do. So we are going to do an episode of Astronomy Cast, a clip show, apparently. As Larry Beckham noted in the comments, which I think is a really great way to describe it, where we're going to look back over these last year. Do you want to? Well, it says favorite things we've done this year.
It was meant to say over 10 years.
Favorite things we've done over 10 years. You got that, Susie? I'm going to change that. Let me change my intro as well so that it's more appropriate. Favorite things we've done over 10.
You only turned 10 once.
Over 10 years. 10 years.
Someone's like, oh no, is this the season finale? No, we have one more week.
One more.
And this is the penultimate of the season. And then we come back in September.
So you want to talk about our favorite episodes or our favorite, like, just stuff we've gone and done?
Both. Like how we went for, what, a year and a half before we met. And
yeah, sure. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this boring to you?
No, I just paperwork.
No. Okay. All right. I got a better intro that's more appropriate.
Okay. I lost where on my screen Audacity went.
I've got my Audacity ready to go. Okay. It's going to be the most boring summer. It won't be the most boring summer. It's going to be an awesome summer.
And I will be doing shorts all through the summer on just the random stuff we talked about last week that all of us should be doing throughout the summer. Thanks to Gordon, who saw on eBay the exact lens I'd been lamenting I couldn't afford, except it was $89 on eBay. I actually can start doing some cool astrophotography.
What's the lens they got?
It's a 500 millimeter Tekon. Is that how you say it? It's one of the off-brand awesome lenses.
Yeah, it's like a telescope.
Tacron?
It's a telescope that you bolt onto the front of your DSLR. It's a 500 millimeter lens, but not like made to Canon 500 millimeter lens standards, but It's going to be good for sort of fairly bright objects. So,
and it's a fast lens because it's a fixed 500 millimeter.
I think I'll get one of those. I saw them, like for $89 or $90 on Amazon. Sounds good. All right, so we will do a show, and then we will answer your questions about space and astronomy. I've got to book out quickly at the 2:30 mark. We're actually going to go shoot. So, and I've got to shoot before we go for beer. So I got a window that I got to get it done. Johnny says he'll be wearing shorts all summer long too. That's what I thought you were saying. I'm like, what? Why are we talking about shorts? Anyway, short pieces of content. I understand.
We should start recording.
What now? Okay. All right. I'm going to press record.
I pressed record. Hey, Chad.
Hello, Chad. Here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 453. Favorite things we've done over 10 years. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. My name is Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today. With me is Dr. Pamela, the Director of Technology and Citizen Science at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, and the Director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Fraser?
I'm doing super well. This is the penultimate show.
It is, but only of the season. We are coming back.
Yes.
As long as there's no catastrophes, we are coming back in September. So we are ending our 10th season. Isn't that
10 seasons. All those people who are like jumping on the old podcast bandwagon, like, heard about this thing called and the hilarious thing is, like, you were podcasting years before we even started Astronomy Cast.
with Slacker Astronomy, we launched on Valentine's Day in 2005, and Adam Curry had to add science and technology as a category in the Podio directory because there weren't any before us.
Now, I am sad to say today that we don't have any new patrons to thank who've come on board on the $10 level and above. So I'm just going to thank last week's patrons again, to double thank. In fact, I'm going to thank a bunch of them.
You should thank all of the $10 level patrons.
I don't have the list in front of me, but
I will pull up the list. You blather while I pull up the list, and I can thank people.
Yes. You thank the $10.
I can do this.
All right.
But you have to entertain people while I look it up. Actually, tell everyone while I'm looking this up your favorite story about how our show got started. Because you were the one that picked the first topic, and we could not have had a better first topic.
Do you mean how Astronomy Cast actually? We've already started the show, haven't we? This
yes.
Is, you're breaking all the rules today. Okay,
I am.
Okay, so you want to know how Astronomy Cast happened?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. All right. So back in 2007, like you, the podcast thing had gotten super exciting, and I was listening to a ton of podcasts already, and I wanted to make one, but I knew that I was really busy. So I wanted to figure out a way to do a podcast with somebody where I didn't have to do a lot of preparation work in advance. So I reached out to Phil Plait, of course, and Phil Plait and I had already, very good friends. We had already merged our communities together into the Bad Astronomy Universe Today forum, aka Bout. And then and I was like, hey, Phil, do you want to do a podcast where we just yak every week about astronomy? And Phil was already beyond busy, and he was like, man, I would love to, but I am so busy already, and I know that I can't commit to something like that on that regular basis. But I know somebody who would be better than me, in fact. And he mentioned that he knew you. Now, how did you know Phil?
So we actually know each other from before he was the Bad Astronomer. He was a PhD astronomer working at Goddard. He went from Goddard. I don't know if there was an intermediate step that I've forgotten, but he ended up working at Sonoma State University in Len Kaminsky's group. And we were both at the High Energy Astrophysics Conference in Las Cruces. We were both at AAS meetings. And we were the weirdos who were PhD scientists and journalists writing blogs. And I remember there was one time we were both live blogging side by side in a NASA town hall as fast as our little fingers could type. And it was, who can post this to WordPress faster? It was totally friendly competition because we both have our own spin on things. And so we knew each other from that side of things when we were both working off of federal grants. And he was the smart one, and he's now making his own way in the world with far less paperwork to fill out.
And so you talked to him, and had so he was familiar with what you were doing, and so I suggested the show to him, and he's like, nope, can't do it, but talk to Pamela because she was doing Slacker Astronomy, and I was familiar with Slacker Astronomy, and I didn't realize that you guys had kind of wrapped up Slacker Astronomy.
So we were just wrapping up Slacker Astronomy because I was moving from Boston to Edwardsville, and one of the other members was just starting graduate school. And so there was a whole lot of transitions going on. We're handing the show over to Michael Koppelman, who did a great job with it for several years. And it was time for new things. And this show came along, and I can now thank the people who are keeping the show going along.
Oh, well, let's take a second now. Before we get to that thrilling next part of the story, why don't you go ahead and thank some people?
Okay, so I would like to thank Clem Unger, Joe, oh boy,
Oh,
Joe
how you like that, Steve?
Corveris, Chad Calopi, Greg Guthman, Frank Tippin, Arthur Latz Hall, Tracy Ann, James Poley, Les Howard, Paul D. Disney, Tim Shue, Paul Scoose, Brian Kilby, David Power, Gordon Dewis, Bart Flaherty, Tyrone Fong, Margot Robinson, Kenneth Ryan, Anthuser. I'm going to go with Anthuser. Chauncey Wilson, Sylvan Westby, Helga Bjorkang. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I will get that right someday.
I don't think we can.
Bill Hamilton, Charles White, Matt Woods, Joe Green, David Trog. You are our $10 and up and up and up patrons, and thank you. You allow us to plan for the future when you donate to us through this continuing donation system.
So back to our story. I talked to you, and so Phil gave me your email address, and I reached out to you, and I knew you already had the chops, so I pitched the format to you. And the funny thing is that, and if you go back to the beginning of Astronomy Cast, the format is essentially untouched from the moment we developed it. And the gist was, I really enjoyed Slacker Astronomy, but
it was scripted.
It was scripted, and you could hear it.
Yeah.
You could tell that there was sort of, you had your part, they had their part, everyone was doing their parts. And although, because, I do the Guide to Space videos, and they're scripted, but with that interplay, with that interaction, it never sounded totally human to me. And so that was sort of part of it. It's like I clearly, and there were some other podcasts that were sort of these conversations that I really enjoyed. There was this, the Slate Political Gabfest is one of my favorite podcasts. I've been listening to it for the whole time, and they have this sort of natural conversation, and that sort of came out around the same time, a little before
Security
us.
Now was
Security
the big
Now, that's
one as
right.
well.
Yeah. Security Now, that's right, with Leo Laporte, and oh no, I forget the name of the security researcher. But yeah, that was exactly it. Leo Laporte was a knowledgeable expert, was knowledgeable enthusiast, amateur, and was interviewing an expert about this topic, and I really enjoyed that format. And so that was sort of, we Frankensteined a bunch of these ideas together and proceeded. And I reached out to you, and within
it
days,
was a week between the first conversation and recording, and we got amazingly lucky because the world kind of decided to throw out an awesome first topic.
Right. Our first topic was why Pluto wasn't a planet.
And this was because we pretty much decided to start doing the show about the same day that Pluto stopped being a planet.
Yeah. So literally it was fresh news back in 2007.
Six,
sorry, when we started Astronomy Cast. And then there was just like there you go, Colin Jones, Steve Gibson is the name of the other person on Security Now. That's exactly it. I don't know if they still do the show. Anyway, right. And so we picked that topic, and then there was just an unlimited number of topics that we could go after. And did.
We kept trying experiments as we went. For a while, we tried doing strictly questions shows where we had people send us in questions, because we were doing this back before there was really the technology to do any of this to a live audience. Mm-hmm. So we were talking over Slack. I had my little M Audio podcast factory. You had your system.
We didn't have Slack back then.
Not Slack, Skype.
Yeah.
We were using Skype.
That's right. We recorded the show in Skype. Yeah.
And so we were talking in Skype, recording in GarageBand. Even you were on a Mac in those days. Mm-hmm. And we just kept going. And I know for me, one of the scariest programming changes we made was when you were like, let's do this with live video. And I was like, I do
Yeah.
not know how I feel about this.
Well, and so the going with the live video, that was all about the Google Plus rollout. So Google Plus rolled out in 2011,
hmm
and there was this idea of Hangouts. And so we started to play around with Hangouts just kind of privately and with fans, and people were sort of using Hangouts to try and, to sort of see what it's like to have a live video discussion, which no one had ever done, right? And so then we did that, and then Google released this idea called Hangouts on Air, and so we used the Hangout to do the show, and we would invite all of our up to 10 people to come and join us inside the Hangout while we did the show, and all they had to do was be quiet while we recorded our episode, and then once it was done, we'd stick around for another half hour and answer their questions. But it was only for 10 people.
And we got lucky because between what we were doing with Astronomy Cast, what you pioneered with Let's Go Look at the Moon and the virtual star parties, and both of us trying to make the Google Plus platform a success, we caught the eye of Vic at Google, and he really did a lot of work to open the doors for us to be one of the first groups to get access to Hangouts on Air when it was invitation only,
Mm-hmm.
and get us verified and allow us to just do the stuff. We had so many experiments over the years that failed.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we tried doing enhanced
Yes.
podcasts?
Yeah. So just an idea. So this was probably a year, 2 years into doing this. iTunes had this enhanced podcast format that you could use where while the podcast was going on, you could display pictures on the screen of your iPod.
This is pre-iPhone, folks.
Pre-iPhone, barely, yeah. And so you could be listening on your iPod, and there would be we selected a bunch of pictures to go along with the episode. And so while you were listening, you could be almost like seeing a slideshow of interesting images that were associated. Totally flopped.
And it took me 6 hours an episode to do the graphics, and it totally flopped.
Yeah.
We did that like 5 times.
Yeah. And nobody wanted to see them, and we could tell that nobody was watching them. We tried like low res versions of it. We did like for people who were living with very bad internet. So that was pretty funny. And then, but I think, being able to do the live shows sort of changed everything, just because we can actually be doing the show and interacting with the fans and talking with them. And we're able to kind of mash the question show back into the live show, back into the recording of Astronomy Cast. And so if you show up while we do the show live every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific, you can just hang out with us and talk before and after we actually do the show. The show. So the show is actually an hour long. And I guess our more recent advancement is that we added the whole raw feed. If you want, you get it as a podcast. Now, we had never met for the first while.
It's true. So we had talked a bit when we did our basically Council of Doom podcasts over on Slacker, where we reached out to all of the astronomy new media people, and we were like, hey, will you join us for an hour and we'll talk? And so we'd done that, but we didn't really know each other. Then we started podcasting, and we were slacking all the time, and I got to know your kids, but it was always 2 people talking through a video.
Now, whenever Pamela says Slack, just replace that with the word Skype.
Oh, dang it.
Yeah.
This is sort of like that episode where I kept screwing up Neptune and Newton. Those are also not the same thing.
Stuart Butterfield, you're welcome. Okay.
So we were talking through Skype, and it was finally the summer of 2007 that we were in Austin, Texas. No, it was winter meeting 2008. So January 2008. So we'd been going for a year and a half at that point. And there was a meeting of the American Astronomical Society in Austin, Texas. And we had funding from the National Science Foundation to test our ability to live blog the conference. And explain to the world everything that was going on back before Twitter was a thing.
Right. Now, but we also tried to live stream the video, right?
We did.
Yeah.
So our National Science Foundation funding allowed us to madly type. It allowed us to stream all of the press conferences and the awards. And so there's a whole crew of us. It was you, me, Phil. I had 3 students, and we were all down in Austin meeting for the first time while sharing a hotel suite. And it was just one of those crazy experiences. And it was like we'd known each other forever. And it wasn't the first time we met, although it was actually, I think, one of the first times I saw your face. And I was so confused because you didn't look like radio voice guy.
Right. And now I think it's funny, like when people see my picture, they don't think they know what I'm going to sound like. And when people hear what I sound like, they don't think they know what I'm going to look like. But now I think because I do so much video, everyone is accustomed to both my haunting visage and my screeching sound together to sort of bring the whole package home. But it's true. It's funny how... remember we were at Dragon Con, like I think a year after... and we were in line and talking to each other, and someone right in front of us turned around and went, "Are you Fraser and Pamela?"
Yes. And this has happened to us multiple times over the years, where up until just a year or so ago, when we started doing everything on video, we were just 2 voices that put people to sleep each night.
Oh, that's true. So we get this email all the time, and like, "Oh, I really love the show, and I hope this doesn't make you mad, but I like to just listen to it to go to sleep." And I understand that.
We do.
Yeah.
We really do. I fall asleep to some podcasts as well.
Yeah, me too.
So
I guess that's the question, right? Like, which are the podcasts that you just can't bring yourself to play when you're trying to go to sleep because you want to hear every second of it? So,
right.
Yeah. So we hadn't met. Now we've, over the course of the 10 years, so we've had a chance to do a bunch of pretty fun adventures.
It's true. So we try and tie all of our adventures to science. We've gone to a number of AAS meetings, and there was one time that I was in Seattle and you came down with your kids on the way to Disney. But I think the end all be all was we went on a cruise, which is how we know so many of you out there in the audience, to go to Mayan ruins on the day the Mayan calendar ended.
Yeah. Yep.
And this was the first time you told me that I do something that apparently I'd been doing for years.
Yes.
And you want to let the audience in on what you failed to ever tell me I was doing?
Sure. So I'm hoping that half the audience has noticed this, but Pamela is innocently filthy mouthed. So she says stuff that can be taken out of context so badly all the time that normally when you're hanging out with your friends, you would make a bunch of jokes when a person accidentally says something. I have to sort of shut up and just ignore and just pretend that she didn't say that because I don't want to call attention to the things she just said. But yeah, it's pretty funny that you do that.
And so since then, some of the folks out there that we've gotten to become really good friends with some of the people that we know because they were listening to this show. And 2 of them up in Sacramento, whose names I won't out because I don't know if they want me to. So to my Sacramento friends, they don't let me get away with that. But unfortunately, we're not together face to face enough to actually change my ways.
Yeah, so I think the point is that when you hear her and just completely not intentionally saying something that has, 2 two meanings, feel free to send her a tweet. Yeah.
It's true. And you weren't on Twitter for the longest of times.
Yeah. Yes.
But now you are.
Well, kind of. I battle social media, and I find it's a tough thing. I'm a total grazer by naturally, right? And so I will sit there and update Reddit and see if there's a new email and all this kind of thing. And at the same time, it is devastating to my productivity. And I got a bunch of stuff to do. I got a full plate. And so I tend to have to I have to turn that stuff off and not be around it. I actually purposefully, oh man, what was it? It was during the George Bush presidency, and I was the second election, and I must have spent half of my time watching news, updating blogs, listening to political podcasts, and I'm a Canadian, what do I care who your president is? But we care right now. But I realized that it was toxic to my brain. I had to just I just had to shut it all down. And so now I don't read any news. I don't really read Twitter. I never read Facebook. I don't do any of that. And the important news still finds its way back to me. I did resubscribe to a couple of my favorite political podcasts so I can sort of stay on top of that. I really enjoy the Slate Political Podcast, and I really enjoy On the Media. And so those sort of keep me connected. But apart from that, I really can't. And so, no, I'm amazed that you can have conversations with people on social media. I can't do it.
So this is why I do our office hours for Astronomy Cast, and those will be going throughout the entire summer. Is I find my sanity in getting to share words with humans, because one of the things that I think always surprises our audience is I'm the PhD astronomer, but I maintain our website and write software and code. And you actually completed your CS degree while we were recording this show, and you spend your entire day working with words.
Yes.
So when my brain is like, oh, dear God, the only words I currently know are select, for, count, sum.
Yeah.
I'm like, I shall take a social media break and talk to our audience. I had a great conversation yesterday on our weekly Space Hangout crew Slack channel. This time I actually mean Slack and not Skype.
Yes.
Where one of our audience members was just like, I need an astronomer. And I was like, I am an astronomer. And we talked about Doppler shift, and it was cool and it was awesome. And I got to stop writing database code for a few minutes.
Yeah. So I think one of the most interesting things, we talked about some of the adventures that we've been on, and honestly, I think the best is yet to come. We've got the Eclipse trip coming up this year. I'm doing a trip to Iceland with Dr. Pamela, and there's a really great response to that. And I think that hopefully if we can go out and do more of that kind of thing out in the world. I'd love to figure out more ways to do that. But one of our collective kind of most meaningful greatest priorities is to get regular human beings, amateurs, intelligent amateurs, involved and participating in the science itself. And that's been a huge part of your career. So can you talk a bit about Galaxy Zoo and then into CosmoQuest, and then sort of, we had this sort of Star Chamber meeting at Dragon Con, and sort of, I think, set some decisions that sort of pushed everything forward.
I actually, hold on.
Okay. What's going on?
So, pardon the destruction and carnage. Do you recognize this?
So, store, citizen science, social media, blog, forums.
So back in 2011, you and I were at the Marriott outside of Dragon Con, and we didn't have any paper because it's us. And we asked the waitress for a piece off of her pad. And this is what she gave us. And you can see my really bad drawing at the bottom of ideas for a new citizen science project, of how we needed to have badges and accomplishments, which we now finally have in CosmoQuest.
Yeah.
And we did this original map of what all would be required that turned into a PowerPoint slide that I've been showing for years. And we basically changed my career entirely at that moment.
Yep.
And this is one of those things where you've been casually sitting in the background, publisher
Nagging
of Universe Today, nagging me. But I mean, you've gone through some amazing life changes we'll get to as well. But I keep recreating my career, which is one of those crazy things to do, because when we first started, I had just arrived at Southern Illinois University. I was teaching classes, I was doing research on variable stars, and we were podcasting. And I get grumpy when people tell me I'm wasting my time on things. And the result of me getting grumpy about people telling me that we were wasting our time on the podcast was for me to publish research papers showing we had an impact. And so we did that. And you were like, have at it. You promoted everything out of the surveys. We got all the responses. We got great research. 2008, when we were down in Austin, that was when I met the folks from then Galaxy Zoo. And a few months later, we got to talking about, well, what about creating the WordPress of citizen science? And we co-founded Zooniverse. And a couple of years later, you and I are sitting in a Marriott, and we're like, okay, so how do we make it more than just clicking and turn it in to treating the citizen scientists the exact same way that I treat my students who are working at home? And that's, I talk to them through the internet. We don't have to have our students in front of us. And you really pushed me to stop having citizen scientists as how I solved a problem and have them as collaborators and peers. And that was excellent.
Yeah, well, I think that, one of the real benefits of us doing Astronomy Cast for so long was the outpouring of support and the emails and messages that we would get from the listeners who, for whatever reason, their career path had taken them down somewhere else. They ended up in computer science. They ended up as bankers. They ended up as teachers. They ended up as whatever life direction they ended up. But a love of space and astronomy and the cosmos was always part of who they were. And Astronomy Cast allowed them to sort of dabble in this thing that they'd always really enjoyed. But there was this kind of wistful sadness that they hadn't actually chosen as a career path and turned it into and made those contributions to science that they always could have. And yet these were very smart people. They had amazing accomplishments. They had already achieved stuff in other fields. And come on. This astronomy
They just wanted to science.
Yeah, this astronomy thing is not that hard. We can teach a 5-year-old to identify craters on the surface of the moon. So we wanted to figure out a way to bridge that gap, to allow the people who had always wanted to contribute to science but didn't have the time and money and resources to go out and get that proper degree, and then at the same time take those researchers who had done the work and who were hungry for knowledgeable people, and then just work on both sides of this puzzle, to make this two-sided marketplace. Help the researchers appreciate and sort of the capabilities of the citizens, and at the same time help the citizens upgrade their skills and capabilities to a point where the two could come together, and you would have this army of people who could move scientific progress forward without necessarily having to jump through the Ivy League tower mentality, right?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's hard being an astronomer. The money isn't and by hard, I don't mean the math. I mean there are excruciatingly few jobs. It is painful trying to get grant funding. The amount of paperwork and bureaucracy, and it's I don't get to play with the science as much as I would like to. And if someone out there wants to have a creative, awesome job free of federal and state bureaucracy and earn sensational money, this isn't the field for them. Go out, do computer science, do engineering, do writing, except the money's not so good there. Do something. And then come do the fun part with the citizen science. Come work on the data analysis, enjoy the data. And sometimes when we're working on papers, we'll reach out and we'll want your input, your help. Come get to experience the good parts without the tedious parts.
Yeah. And the whole idea of Cosmo Academy is another way where you could like pick a specific topic, sit down for a set amount of time with a researcher in that field and learn directly from them. And I think, this was the idea back in the beginning on that napkin there is let's come up with certifications. Let's come up with credentials. Let's have people gain in their current abilities to the point that they can show up for duty with a researcher, and the researcher can know that these people have what they need.
And the only problem that we've ever had with Cosmo Academy is we haven't had the money fall from the sky that allows us to do it for free like we do with Astronomy Cast. And paying instructors a living wage makes the classes expensive, and we're just going to keep looking until we can find that money from the sky that allows us to offer knowledge for free, which I think is very important to both of us.
So let's just, I don't know, we've sort of reached our normal length. What does the future hold, do you think?
Well, that's actually what we have scheduled for the entire next episode, is looking forward to what are the things we have planned, what are the science discoveries we hope to see.
Yeah.
Let's place our bets. How long until we find the first world with free oxygen in its atmosphere and other signs of life? When is the first time we see, well, let's figure that out next week.
That sounds awesome. All right, well, thanks, Pamela. Thanks to 10 years. And here's to at least 10 more years.
I raise my coffee cup to you.
I don't have one here, but...
That's okay.
We can fist bump here.
We can fist bump.
Boom. All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week. And now we save. Welcome to the least exciting part of the show. 4:53. I think. So I saw a ton of people asking in the chat if I was going to be doing the office hours this summer. And I was struggling to figure out how to fit it into the episode gracefully. But I just want to let you know, Patreon patrons, I'm going to continue to do office hours throughout the summer. There's going to be a couple of weeks where we have a break because I'm going to Europe and I can only multitask so much. But other than the weekends around 4th of July, we will continue to have office hours. And as I've said before, once we're done with the season of Astronomy Cast, I'm going to start doing some recording of short stuff leading up towards the eclipse. So this special thing that we have is going to end until September and then come back, because that's kids, dogs, horses, gardens, yards. Those things happen. And it doesn't stop in the summer, though, because we're always planning for the next year and the next big idea and the next adventure.
Yeah, totally. Does anyone have any questions? Steve Jobs wants to know, what's the best way to collect electrons universally from all atomic particles? What's the best way to collect electrons?
In a wire?
I don't know.
What you really want is just a potential difference, and the electrons are like, ooh, I shall go over there. This is why lightning happens. You end up with a potential difference. The friction in the clouds generate a bunch of free electrons, and then they decide to jump somewhere else to try and even out the potential difference. So create a large potential difference, have a medium the electrons will flow through, jump across, electrocute you through. And the electrons shall move to serve the bidding of the electric force.
Arjone asks, if supermassive black holes were formed from the accretion of medium-sized black holes, would that leave a recognizable gravitational wave pattern that could be found with LIGO?
I don't know, because I don't know what wavelengths those would be at, and LIGO isn't sensitive to all wavelengths.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons that they wanted to build both LISA and LIGO, is they're sensitive to different kinds of things, which is why there are those who argue that we didn't need LISA because they look at different things. I still want LISA. I'm still bitter.
Oh, it's coming. It'll happen. It'll happen. And not only Lisa, I mean, now with, I'm sure, I guarantee you, allow me to predict this for you. With the third discovery of gravitational waves, we're going to see a deep investment in a lot of these upcoming experiments. Lisa is going to take this to the next level, and the follow-on version, the Big Bang Observer, is going to go even further, right? Big Bang Observer is going to see, in theory, fluctuations beyond the cosmic microwave background radiation. So, Selena Atelier asks, enough of your story, just talk about Susie. So we should.
Man.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
So, but it's not just Susie over the years. So let me see if I can do a quick recap.
Sure.
When we first started, we had Rebecca Bemrose Fetter, who was doing transcripts and audio engineering and everything else, and was an undergrad. And that she moved on to a job that let her do science about a year later, maybe not quite a year. And that was when we hired Preston Gibson, who started doing our audio engineering and did that up until a year ago. And this is the first season without him doing our audio engineering. And at that point, I may have the order wrong on this, but either Nancy Atkinson or Georgia Bracey took over. And
not the editing, but the producing.
The show notes.
Yeah, I think it was Georgia and then Nancy. Yeah.
Right.
And Nancy, of course, is our editor over on Universe Today. But she was sort of doing double time with that and working with NASA. So.
And then for a while in the middle, we had
your audio.
Courtney
Sorry,
Hogan.
your audio is fading in and out. So I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry, that's because I moved my head.
Okay.
I will stop moving my head. So then we had Courtney Hogan for a little while, and then she moved on to bigger and better things because, again, kept hiring students, and students move on to bigger and better things if you're successful. And then we landed on Susie, and Susie.
But do you know how the story with Susie went?
Well, Susie was a podcaster who podcast for us on 365 Days of Astronomy.
Yes, but okay, so this is total chance. So and this is going to be hilarious. So what happened was Susie, of course, is we've known Susie for a long time. She's from Atlanta, and Susie, by all means, say if I get this wrong in the chat. And she was on the Parsec Awards and was part of the podcasting community and was working on her own podcast. And I was getting totally overwhelmed with Universe Today stuff. And Susie had been sort of being primarily a mother and was focusing on her kids. But then it sort of got to a point where she was looking for a little part-time work. And so she posted on Twitter this thing that I never look at. Hey, does anybody have some work? And I, knew Susie and knew what she was, what she specialized in. And I'm like, I might have some work for you, and reached out to her. And then she started doing some production work for Universe Today and some of the other projects that we work on. And then, like all people, get sucked into the vast CosmoQuest vortex.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And now she's project manager for Astronomy Cast. She keeps us on the straight and narrow, and we are cats to try and herd. And
Yeah.
over on CosmoQuest, she's our communications manager and also helps me with the social media. And she's going to start getting sucked into the research that we're going to be beginning, because the things that people don't realize is she's actually an all but dissertation clinical psychologist. And so the fact that she can cat herd us suddenly makes total sense.
Yeah. And now our latest editor is Chad, and Chad and I remember that conversation about me getting my computer science degree? That was close, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And Chad was here in Courtney with me doing, he was taking the same computer science program that I was. And he was a sort of freelance programmer and video editor and videographer. And so I talked to him maybe 3 years ago to sort of help me out with some of the Guide to Space videos. And he immediately, became completely indispensable to that work. And now he, doesn't get to think about anything else but Guide to Space videos. But we were able to sort of, but when Preston was wrapping up, I'm like, well, Chad's an editor. He's both video and audio, so he can step in and do that work, and that was a really good fit. So that's our current team setup. It's funny.
And folks are asking about a tiny intern who has traveled with me several times. She was employed by CosmoQuest, again, young person who went on to bigger and better things. She was employed by CosmoQuest, and we threw small projects for Astronomy Cast because she's like killer artist. We threw some stuff at her, and she did a lot of work for me at cons, basically preventing me from losing things because I'm not so good with physical reality and lose my phone at least once per con. And yeah, I need help. So she's still doing great. See her. I have her tool set and need to return it. Still see her fairly regularly.
Malcolm Bond really wants to know about the migration of planets.
They do it. It's what they do.
How much migration do we think happened in the past of the solar system?
It depends on who you talk to. There are some folks doing some really interesting 3-dimensional simulations that make it look like the NICE model, which had all the outer planets migrating all over, and had Saturn and Jupiter in resonance. Some of the new models that are getting done aren't bringing that up again, but there are models that have massive amounts of planetary migration, and there are models that have less amounts of planetary migration. I think this is something that we'll understand better in the next few years, and we can talk about in the next episode, as computers allow us to do better and better 3-dimensional hydrodynamic simulations.
But the modern concept of or the kinds of planetary systems that are out there, such as hot Jupiters, things like that, a lot of them depend on planetary migration, that you couldn't end up with a planet in that position if it hadn't migrated. And so if a planet does migrate through the solar system, what kind of havoc does it wreak as it makes that migration?
It depends on what's in the way.
Yeah.
I mean, space is mostly empty. Sorry for the failure.
Steve Chisnell asks, so I've been curious how things going, and was my archive of the old Slacker Astronomy podcast helpful?
It was. I still need to find time to stick it online somewhere.
Is Slacker Astronomy, the old episodes, not available anywhere? No. And is that okay? Yeah. Have you talked to the other team members and see if you can...
Well, it's just a matter of, over the years, people stopped paying for server bills. I'm going to stick it all up on Starstrider. I just haven't had time to set up
feed it into archive.org.
Yeah,
because archive, and then that sort of puts it into the public domain. This is what archive.org was formed for. But this is a great example of a problem, and I don't sort of have time to go down the rabbit hole today, but we are losing our history.
Yeah,
That
it's
that
true.
because everything is on computer now, things that were created back in the beginning of the internet, you can't find them. You can't find the old internet anymore. And so we are living in this world now that is X number of years wide, and there is no history because it's on people's hard drives, people's computers, people's web pages. The web pages get changed, and this history is gone. And it is future historians are going to have no way to be able to look back through the material of older generations because it's not like bricks or cuneiform tablets or chunks of paper or libraries. They are hard drives. They have to be maintained or they're gone, and the data stored on them is gone. I mean, how do you have? Arjona's saying, like, do you have videotapes that you've thrown in the garbage? 3.5-inch floppy drives, 5 1/4, 8-inch floppy disks, CD-ROM drives, old MySpace accounts, etc., etc. It's all gone.
I just downloaded my live journal. So yeah. Now you do have to leave right now,
Yes.
but I saw one complaint I can fix.
Not enough Eddie?
Not enough Eddie. So
Aww.
This is Eddie. And the irony is I called and called and called and he didn't come. So I wrestled with a chip bag and he came to the sound of the chip bag.
Of course. Eric Naps his paper. Put it in paper. Yeah, that sounds great. Just write out our podcast in paper. We'll press it onto records, maybe.
In cuneiform.
We'll put it onto cuneiform tablets, yeah. Hi, Champ 1. Cat videos. Gone. All right, let's wrap things up. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks, Pamela. As always, a huge thank you to the WSH crew. This is the community behind the scenes that is organizing this chat. Go to wshcrew.space if you want to join this. Again, if you're watching this live, but you much prefer a podcast, and who blames you, the entire raw feed is available as its own separate podcast. And so you can find out information on how to do that. I believe it's astronomycast.com/feeds/raw, but I'm sure you can find it out somewhere using the Googles. Thanks, Pamela. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next week for the ultimate and final episode of this season of the long-running Astronomy Cast.
It's great, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us.
All right. We'll see you next week.